Hi Minerva, how are you?
Hello, Ruben. I'm good. How are you? Thank you so much for having me today.
You're welcome. I'm doing great. Where are you joining from?
Right now, I'm in Italy, so I'm joining you close to Florence, a little city close to Florence.
Nice. Well, I do want to visit that. That's in my bucket list. If I go there, I hit you up. Now, I am very curious. I know that you have been doing this for a while, and I'm going to start there. That's where my curiosity is leading me. Can you tell us a little bit about how long you've been doing this for? What is that you're actually doing? Give us a little intro into your world.
Yes, so I'm an advisor for conscious leaders, a consciousness coach, and I help people with healing, with supporting their growth, anything related to personal development. I'm very interested in supporting people with. I've been doing these things almost 20 years. I started as talent manager and then I became an advisor for artists mostly, and then I moved into working more with entrepreneurs, with creatives, and honestly anybody that is an high achiever and want to some support in seeing their ideas or their vision become reality, and they need maybe practical steps to make those vision and those big dreams become part of their life, but also the collective.
The first thing that came to mind is I can see the end goal when it comes down to achieving, but from your perspective, what is a handful of main blockages that limit us from being where we want to be? Because if we want to be there, that means that we're somewhere else. How can we identify blockages that get on the way?
I think there are many different ways that blockages can show in your life, but at the root of it, there is always fear, right? Fear is always the opposite of trust and so growth. And when we speak about fears, most of them are created in our childhood and they come from experience, from traumas that we develop in our early life, in our early years, and they perpetuate in our adult life. They just are more hidden. Some of them they manifest as blind belief and they are hidden in our subconscious, so it's very hard for us to spot them, right? And there is also the thing that as humans we are just a big mass of habits, right? We like to, our mind like to keep us safe, and so we keep doing the same thing in different ways, but we just stay in the same box for a very long time until we are able to break and then go to the next level and have that breakthrough or that breakdown that kind of open up our box, and then so we are able to expand and experience more.
So you touched on a few themes that are very interested. One of them is you mentioned at the beginning experience. So I am extremely curious about experience because I find that that's one of our subconscious ways to continue to do what we have been doing. And I'm especially intrigued by the environment. That's what I'm into the seasons. And what people tend to focus when you talk about the environment is the weather, but the reality is that unconsciously, subconsciously, a lot of our behaviors are actually molded through experiences. We also have some instincts in us for survival, which I know that you look into, trauma that happens in before we're even born, whether people want to call it previous lives or whether people want to call it on the womb or whether people want to call it DNA memory. There's many ways to go around it. But when it comes down to experiences, if we limit it to our personal experiences, within from the time that we're born, how those affect us. I want to give the audience a little debrief because a lot of that happens in childhood. So can you go a little deep on that so we understand why it's so important to actually start trying to undercover some of
Yeah.
those experiences that keep us doing the same thing over and over and over?
I think the first step is always awareness. So really looking in our life and the decision we make or the things that show up in our life, especially the one that keep repeating themselves. So if we keep attracting the same person, if we keep getting stuck at the same point, if we keep arriving close to something, but then we see that we self-sabotage, right? All these ways that the trauma can show up in our life, I think they are the first step. Recognizing all those ways that the trauma is showing up in our life, I think is the first step for us to be able to solve that knot, right, that is created in
Mhm.
our subconscious. And so presence and really make sure that we are active and proactive in our life and we don't let just instinct, as you say, and the subconscious just run the show all the time, and we just do the same thing all over again without noticing, right? So even just changing route to go to work, changing store, changing the place where you go to walk, changing the route, all these little changes that put the mind in discomfort, they help us see other things, other opportunities, and they also break us free from all these little habits that we create. Even how we, not only how the tea we drink, but even how we hold the cup of the tea sometimes is always the same way. And literally it's a practice of making those little shifts so you can see how much freedom you can actually have in your life.
Well, one thing I want to highlight that we could totally go there, but I guess my intuition is leading me in a different direction. But I want to highlight this before we move on. You're mentioning things that repeat, people you attract, situations you find yourself into. I think that that is the way to become aware because we usually, not me perhaps, but because I'm trained on that, it's like I'm constantly looking for patterns. A lot of those patterns are completely subconscious. I don't think I will ever be able to get away from the majority of them. But when we are experiencing that deep fear, that deep resistance is the word that I use. Technical resistance, it can be called friction. Like when you're feeling that gut stomach pain, that feeling that something is wrong, and perhaps whatever it is, like whether you find yourself in a situation whether it's pretty obvious or whether you are just feeling it without really knowing why, it's very powerful to look into patterns. So the question always comes: is this the first time that I'm feeling this, or is this something that tends to come up in my life? I think that is like the most empowering thing that we can do. And that's why I'm so curious about the seasons because it's literally pattern after pattern. Now, I want to ask a question about the environment. What do you perceive the environment to be? Um, what is the importance in the environment? And literally, just it's a very curious question because you have a very unique perspective, and I want to hear what your perspective is.
The environment, you mean, like actually the what kind of environment where we live?
So I'm gonna break it down.
Uh,
So for example, the environment of my brain is my body.
okay.
The environment of my body is the indoor space, the outdoor space, the environment of my spirit. Like I don't really have that completely defined. Perhaps you do. Um, and I have other definitions like our environment is the people that we encounter, the
Exactly.
temperature, the weather, the lighting. I pay huge attention to the lighting. So the environment is more than just the weather.
Yes.
So I want to go into. I know you will have a unique perspective about this. So I want to know what it is.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure I was understanding fully your question. Yeah, so when we speak about environment specifically in also personal growth, the biggest and most important thing to look at is honestly the people. Just because we are energy and we emanate energy and we all vibrate a different vibration. If you also are familiar, and I know you are with quantum physics, you know more about that. But also who you have around, of course, affect us, right? And we also affect others. If we are in a good state, we also bring people in a good state. If we are in a bad state, most likely also people around us will be affected from that. It's very hard to always be around negative people and stay positive, right? It's a
Mhm.
lot of work we need to do.
Mhm.
And so, people that surround ourselves are very important. If we speak about our space, the space around us, of course, also that, like, you want to create a space where you feel uplifted, where also the energy can flow in a way that is supportive for you, and you also it feel familiar for you, and you feel if you know about feng shui, and I'm also sure that you heard about it. There's a whole technology around how you should decorate your home and how you should move the furniture around to have the energy move. So definitely our environment is very important. However, is always from the most important thing is always inside of us, right? It's always the way that we take care of our inner world, and that's most likely 80% of the work. All the rest that surround us is 20%, and it's still really important because we interact with it every day. But if we are able to be in a state where we can hold our boundaries, where we can interact just with the thing that we want to interact with, and we are able to create our environment. So definitely important, very, very important. However, it's always coming back to us and saying, okay, why am I making the choices to be in this environment?
Hmm. So I want to follow up in a few
Yeah,
ways here to bring a little bit of context because I'm going to be landing on a question.
yeah,
What is the inside and what is the outside? That's what I'm going to try to
yeah,
get here because I think it's super interesting. So we were talking, everything started with people. And what I have found that is fascinating is that the people that come into our lives and even the people that we're surrounded by
yeah,
is seasonal. Now let me go a little deeper on that. It's like there is some patterns.
yeah,
There is some tendencies that we develop. So for example, the holiday season, the environment changes. We're spending more time with more people, whether it's work-related events, family-related events, but even going shopping a little more. And when you get to that place, the vibration, the energy of that place is a little more fast-paced in that moment in time. And that year repeats itself. So like that time of the year will come back next year. And when you
yes,
start paying attention to that, you realize, wow, like this is like the social dynamic of this season, this moment. It happens to be in one of the four seasons, but it is a moment in time. 3 months doesn't justify, like, it gives you an idea from Chinese traditional medicine, like the vibration, the energy of the season. But there is even more micro examples within that. So I find that extremely interesting because, as you're mentioning, vibration affects us. We are 70% water, give or take. I think it's 76%. So if the people affect us at that level because we perceive the vibration, the energy of the people, what I really always like to think about is how about the vibration and the energy of the environment as a whole? Now, what it gets really interesting is when you start looking at the outside world. Trees is an example, and just like the tree, if I just go in that example, then the grass will do the same. The animals will do also a migratory pattern. It's like the world outside can be compressed into this energy of like inward, like in the winter, the trees already shred their leaves, like all their energy starts going down in the fall to the roots, and the grass does the same. It stops growing. Animals go in hibernation, and even their delaying the eggs. Like a lot of animals that we see on the spring, the summer, the fall, they're actually not really alive in the winter. Like the praying mantis I just learned yesterday, like it lay its eggs in the fall and literally like they just die and then they come back in the spring. So there's like all this energy that goes inwards, and I feel that we're 70% water, so we also reflect and feel that. So I think that I have that perspective on everything, dynamics, the exterior environment, the interior environment, and I think that is extremely, extremely, extremely powerful. So the question leads: if we are experiencing that from the outside, how come what is on the inside takes such a large chunk of how we can perhaps, I'm not going to put words in there, I'm going to leave it open, but you see what I'm going through, right? Like the outside has such an impact in us. Now there are mechanisms, there are ways to change that perhaps, and if you can go there, you want to go there and explore that, I will be more than happy to go there and learn from you. um, but yeah, like it's like so much happening on the outside affect us
yeah.
on the inside. So what is the separation? How come now the inside can also affect the outside? Like where one stops and one starts?
And that's the question, right?
Yeah.
It's an incredible question, and and the truth of it is that like you nail it, like there is no separation at the end of it, right? We are all one, and that's the end of every spiritual journey. So we just got everybody the final point, or you guys don't need to go on a journey because we already give you the tea. That's what happened, right? You really understand that at the end of it, we are all one. How and then the cycles, as you say, they're the most important thing, and they're the only thing that we cannot ascend. No matter how much spiritually you can grow, you can ascend the seasons, right? Winter is always going to come, the night is always going to come. So those are the only thing that we cannot ascend. We can ascend our emotion, we can ascend our our traumas. We cannot send all these things with the work that we do, but those are the things that the cycle will always be there. They were
Mm.
here before us, and they're gonna keep going even after we are gone. And so that bring, as I say, to the bottom of it, that we are one with the universe. However, there are things that we can do to vibrate at the highest vibration that we can in this lifetime. It's not gonna always be, we're gonna always be in this high vibe or it's sustainable, right? But we can do the work to at least be able to create the right emotions inside of us.
Mm.
Because that's the thing we have power on. And the only
Mm.
thing we have power is ourselves. Anything else, as you say, we don't have power on, but this it should be on us.
Mm.
And so at least it's our responsibility, since we are born with this body, with this mind, with these, emotions, to take care of it and to do the best that we can to be a positive contribution that is going to affect not only our life, because it's going to be a very well lived life if we
Mm.
work this way, but also it's going to help everybody else, and things
Mm.
will come. That's the even at the bottom of manifestation, there are all these techniques, right? There are all these things that you can do, vision boards and write things and do that. But at the end of it, if you work on rising your vibration, that's it. Like, the universe is going to do the rest for you. You don't need to micromanage, know when, know how. It will just happen for you, right? The resume that you're going to write for this job is going to be well written, and then you're going to end up at the top of the pile, and then you're going to get the interview right. All these things going to happen for you, and that's the manifestation part. Just because you hold yourself at a very high vibration,
Mm.
and that is easier, said than done, of course,
Mm.
because there are so, as you say, there are so many influence that come in our life, which always being that blissful state is really hard.
Mhm.
There are
Mm.
triggers, there are people that activate things in us that trigger our traumas, trigger the things that we are dealing with, we are trying to work on. But that's the thing, every time you get the trigger on, okay, there is something that I need to heal. And so you continue your journey, and then with calm, with compassion for yourself, you always get 1% better, 1% better. I would say the most important thing is to choose the path, right? Choose the path of growing, or you can always choose the path of being negative or thinking this happened to me, I'm the victim, and why this happening, da 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 da. So the most important thing, I think, choose the path of going up, of taking things for what they are, to have acceptance, to have resilience, to know that everything is working for you. That's what you can do. And it's very hard that things gonna go wrong for you. Your life is always gonna get better. So yeah, if anything, I will go down to these two things. Choose the higher path if you need to choose one every time something happens, because you can't control what happened to you, but you can control how you react to it. You can control the story that you create around this story that I'm creating around these things that happen to me, serving me to move forward. Doesn't matter the truth at this point, because most of the things, sometimes we're not going to be able to know the truth. Nobody is going to come from the sky, say it was, this is the truth. There are infinite possibility to create a story about something that happened to you, right? And so choose the right story that is serving you, forget about the truth, and
Mm.
then after that, just try your best to always go that route, and things will come.
Hmm. Wow. So, yeah, it's like every single back and forth we can go in a million different directions. And I take a lot of notes because I notice that every time you stop talking, I have like 10 different subjects, but then only one can be chosen. And I feel like that's how life is many times. And when you're talking about perception, I, I have been going through that a little bit lately with something, and being able to say, okay, what is a growing mindset, and
Mm,
accepting things as a lesson
mm,
instead of staying down there, right?
right.
So lessons, I think that we can always grow as long as we see that suffering as
Yeah.
a lesson.
Yeah.
And perhaps you do have an opinion on that, specifically as the suffering that we experience as a lesson. I have a very strong opinion about that. I think it's a gift. Like, suffering is a gift, right? That is your opportunity to go into it. And I have a little bit of a framework. Perhaps you have one you might want to share, to take that moment and elevate yourself, like transcend, or to become a better version of yourself, to leave behind whatever you want to call it, end up in a better place thanks to that suffering.
That's exactly what it is. It's beautifully said. And that's really when, even when you meet people or you, I don't know if you watch reality show. I watch reality show because I like to people watching. But so you can see when one person is being through more things than another one.
Mm,
And I don't know if it's for you, but for me, I would never trade what I've been through, even how hard it was to have that depth, to have that
mm,
experience, to have that groundedness, to know what it means to, not just seeing things happen to others and be like, oh, I'm sorry for the person. No, I've been there. I actually know what that means. It's a completely different thing. It's there when the wisdom comes, right? The wisdom is just your knowing, being embodied, being lived. And I think it's priceless, as you say. I think it's a gift. It's a beautiful way of saying that. Is also part of the experience. We sign up also for that. The first Buddhist principle is in life there is suffering. The first
mm,
one. And as you say, and that's why I love your podcast and I love the angle that you use is because everything is impermanent, everything is seasonal, is never going to be there forever. Even if sometimes it seems that you're like, oh my gosh, when this thing is going to end? When this thing, sometimes even for me, when I'm sick and I'm really sick, I'm like, am I ever gonna not sick again? Sometimes I'm like that. When it lasts like longer than I expect to be, it happened, right? Our mind goes there. I'm like, oh my God, but you become so grateful when you are well that you're like, I will never complain that I'm bored. I will never complain that I have these other issues that seem so small. Because everything you want is that you want to heal when you are sick. And so it really brings everything into perspective for when you can then heal and continue your life and you are in a completely different state. You are in so much gratitude. And I feel that also one of the reasons why we suffer, but most likely the one of the main reason of the journey that we are on, the journey of life, is that it's an humbling process. Is being in this grateful energy the more than we can. And if we don't suffer as humans, it's very hard for us to be
mm,
grateful because we always think about lack, about what we don't have.
mhm,
We
mm,
always want to expand as humans. It's our nature. And so it's always going to be like, I don't have enough. I don't have what the
mm,
other person has. And so
mm,
even just to bring things into perspective, I think that's what the universe does. It's just like, okay, here, like we
mm.
can take this away every minute. Just remember that and be grateful because this all can be gone tomorrow. We don't know. And it sounds scary, but it's actually, I think if you take it in a way that like it make you present, grateful, and really in the moment, you don't miss opportunities. You don't miss
Mhm.
to be with the people that you want to be with and experience the thing that you want to experience.
This just led into what I wanted to go next. Even though I have like 10 things I've been writing. The next one that I wanted to explore was why do we always suffer? Meaning, even a person at a high level of consciousness, awareness, vibration, whatever you want to call it, a person with wisdom, a person that is grateful, like a person that has it figured out. I find interesting, and when I look at children, um, it becomes kind of a way for me to tell that we are desiring suffering from some reason. Like there is something in us that needs to suffer, and if the child doesn't have that, it's gonna create it. The child with the perfect childhood and support system, and I see that with my kids. Like they create their own suffering in many occasions, and it just talks about human nature, and you kind of already touch on it, but there is this instinct that is driving towards suffering that I want to explore, because there is the other extreme. like
Yeah.
like that is one extreme. It's like what is in us that goes there naturally, and then there is the other extreme of what is in us that once we achieve again wisdom, harmony, bliss, like financial success. You can make it as early as you want, as spiritually as you want, but somebody that hasn't figured it out might recognize that suffering is part of the journey, and it's better when you suffer from things that you consciously choose. You perhaps look at this is my calling in life, and this is what I'm gonna do, and I am gonna suffer through it, but I'm choosing to go in that path because blah 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 blah. But at the end, I know I will also suffer if I don't go there. Either because of regret or either because of you went in a different direction. There is suffering on any direction we take. So it's just comparing those two extremes, like the children that is somehow instinctively going towards it without a reason why, and then the adult that recognizes that and chooses which kind of suffering they're going to have based on their purpose, whether it's to leave a legacy, whether it's to make the world better, whether it's to help people, whether it's to be richer, whatever it is. He actually chooses that suffering.
That's also beautifully said, and it's very true. Um, and I think so. How I go about it is there are different things that bring to this for me. In the shamanic tradition, we believe in soul contracts. We believe that before we are born, there are certain lessons and experience that we sign up to have in this reincarnation, so our soul can grow accordingly, right? And so, what is called destiny, also, right? Those things that no matter what you do, you can stop the, I don't know, the flight to be late, and so you can go to that meeting, right? There are some things that no matter how much you put your effort into it, you can control. And those things, I think they're part of those thing called destiny or called soul contracts that we experience to get to a certain point with our soul growth in this lifetime. The other way that I see is that so the choosing and chasing the pain, again, um, there is no life that doesn't have pain. I don't know anybody. And also the opposite of that, the people that you see the more successful with the more, financial or fame, most of the time when you reach that top, you feel very similar to the bottom. The breakthrough or the touching the ceiling up there, the emptiness that you feel, the void, is you feel very similar to when you have nothing and you reach the bottom. And that's, you can see when people suicide, right? When people have everything and they still don't appreciate life, and what happened, right? And so that has really very little to do with what you have on the outside. It's a lot about, again, the choice that you make to grow spiritually. And for some people, it can be hard to get to put themselves into difficult situations unless they have to, right? Because if you have all the money in the world, all the access in the world to things, why you should put yourself in suffering? You will avoid it until you can. Money will buy you a lot of, things that you can do to just
Free
avoid.
passes.
Exactly. And so
Mhm.
a lot of entertainment. But again, that will happen that you will have a collapse in your finances, or you will be sick. And when you're sick, sometimes even money can fix it. Um, so yeah, I completely agree that we all have a certain amount of suffering that we come to experience.
Mhm.
And so it's either our responsibility to go through it. And there's also what I think this shamanic or any spiritual initiation done the traditional way, the indigenous way, is here to do, right? You go, you put yourself in 3 years of complete isolation. You don't, you don't, you don't do nothing that you will do in society. You don't read, you don't look at social media, you don't watch anything. You just pray, you just do cold shower, you sleep on the floor, you only eat with your hands. You do all these things that put you in a way where you can humble yourself and really learn what you need to learn. And so life doesn't have to be so hard on you to teach you these things. Um,
Hmm.
Again, everything that life wants to do is to break your ego so your spirit can come out.
Hmm. Wow. Wow. So I don't know what I'm gonna follow up that with because we're getting into very deep territory here. What I have prepared was a little on the other side of things, but you just finished with that's what we're here for. Can you go there? Break the ego so that the spirit is free. And I think that kind of relates to what is happening outside. It's also a reflection of what is happening on the inside. And I think it really like combines a lot of what we have talked so far about suffering is here for good. It is a signal that will help us grow. And now you're touching on the ego. I wasn't prepared for that, but as far as I know, the ego is a mask that is an identity that we learn, and in my perception, is a survival mechanism. that's why you're saying like break the ego, be who you really are. I think we're getting here into very interesting topics, which is like, okay, well, who we really are then, if we are not the ones that are having this interview, or maybe we are. Because I think there's a fine line. And the question that I have now that we're talking about this is like, is there a place to leave from who we are and not from the ego? And how much can we do that? You know, like, is a 24/7 kind of thing, or is it like a few minutes here and there? Um,
Yes, and I think that as again a lot to do with the choices we make, and is life is consistent. It's a school, so we are here to learn until we die, and then even after we keep learning. So there is never really an arrival point. It's just the most that you can do and you want to do in this lifetime to free yourself. And the ego is here as humans to protect us, to help us interact with each other in a way that um, is useful for certain things in society, of course, because if we were all in our spiritual bliss, we wouldn't be able right now to function in the society how it's structured right now, right?
mhm,
But also at the same time, if you turn the coin, is also the issue here. That's why many leaders that operate from the ego, they are not able to get over the traumas that they had in their childhood, and so they are showing up with those trauma, and then the trauma of the leaders are the values that then the collective take, right? For
mhm,
the leader is just the trauma, but for everybody become the culture, right? Become what everything is based upon. And so of course, ascending the ego and just even realizing when the ego is coming into place and be like,
mhm,
okay, I know it's here. Let me choose though to still do the thing that is more human. The thing is make
mhm,
more sense as human beings. Again, even like the material money, you can even right now if you look at politics, for who the main value is money, of course, they will choose some things. For who the main value is humans, they will choose something else, right? It's all about values. And again, both are present in our society. We can say that one is better or one is worse. As humans, we make a choice. And that's why we are so split, because there is so much confusion on what's the ego, what's the soul, what we're
mhm,
here to do, and what society is being built upon, you know? And so I guess what I'm trying to say is that we do our best, of course, to recognize who we really are. We know it. We also know that we need to wear our egos to operate in this world. The point of it is not about being right or wrong. The ego is never right or wrong. It's all about being aware and making
mhm,
choice. So it's still about the freedom. Now
mhm,
I'm in my ego and I know I am.
mhm.
Now, I'm my spirit and I know I am. And that's all it takes, honestly.
Yeah, as we feel the hunger, being able to recognize that's your ego, that's your body needing to
Yeah.
survive, and go ahead and feed it. There's nothing wrong with that. You have both sides. And what I find extremely interesting that connects back to something that I wrote down that I wanted to bring up
Yeah.
is that as we go through the seasons, again, you can see the seasons as a 5 year cycles, or you can see it the way I look at it is 1 year cycle.
Yeah.
They repeat, they repeat, they repeat. What I find that gets on the way of most people that experience certain seasons, most people experience the winter as negative, but there is a big segment of the people that experience the summer very badly. There is a term for it, reverse seasonal affective disorder. Like, this is a very unique experience. But what I want to help people recognize is that the ego is the one is getting on the way, because the season is trying to get something from you. And again, as a signal that trigger suffering is something positive, is a side of you, not your ego, but who you are, that is meant to experience this so it can flower, so it can bloom, so it can show up from a different perspective, from a different energy, from a different angle, whatever you want to call it. I tend to exaggerate the point so people kind of get it, but it's a little dramatic, which is like we are different people in different seasons. And it's because of that, it's because the ego is perceiving something different. And what is giving, or what I have used that for in my own personal life, and it's my hope that many more people do, is that they recognize that that is a version of themselves that is showing up. That version of themselves has different needs, different aspirations, different reactions to that environment biochemically, your body, again, energetically, the environment, the people, the nature, the indoor spaces. Like, it's just a completely different experience that is actually a gift. It is a gift so that we can experience that. So, what I find interesting is that the ego is the one that gets on the way, because the one that has an expectation of how it should be is the ego. It's not who we are. Like, we don't have, like, we are just who we are, right? Like, everything is good, everything is working for us, everything is a great experience. But the ego is the one that is like, wow, I shouldn't be going to sleep at this time. I shouldn't be tired. I should be able to be outside. I should be able to hang out with people. I should, like, there's all these I should, but they don't happen. And that, I believe, is where the suffering just takes the next level.
It's like, when you think about the bird doesn't worry about doing things wrong. The bird is being the bird. Like, if you want to fly
Hmm.
to the next branch, it doesn't overthink it, just fly.
Hmm.
And as humans, we overthink so much, every choice, everything. And of course, there is also external things that come in. This person gonna say that, this person gonna say that. And we forgot how to listen to ourselves, exactly how you say. And I love when you talk about the cycles again, because if you think about women, in a month we are four different women's. And as a
Hmm.
man, you during the day you are the different people. In the morning you are different people. At night you have a daily cycle. So um,
Hmm.
I feel like even already there, we need to understand our difference and really understand the moon, how much the moon affect us. You see, when the moon
Hmm.
is full, how much the water get crazy, and so we forgot these things, but they have been
Hmm.
here since forever.
Wow. I have I really want to go here. I feel led to. Number one, I pay attention. I grab a praying mantis yesterday and I give it to my kid. And it's like, yeah, you get to spend time with it, then put it back, because it's the first one I see this season. And I guess what I'm bringing on is that I'm trying to insert that culture into my children. And it's just awareness. That's it. Because sadly, I didn't get that training. The reason I find interesting is that you are bridging that with shamanic traditions, and I believe other traditions as well. I have not. Like, well, perhaps it's Chinese traditional medicine. Like, I have studied stuff, but there is a lot that is being lost in today's world because we're in such a disconnection with what's happening around us. And it has been happening at this point. It has been happening for over two generations for most of, colonization periods. And everything that has led us here is, at least, it has been happening forever, but I think like the complete disintegration and the disconnection has happened for at least two, three generations. So now here we are, we know training that has been happening for millennials into, this is what you do to survive. Like, this is how you go about life so that the seasons favor you and don't kill you, and the connection to the environment, and there is so many things. So I just find it interesting to have the opportunity to talk to you because you are bridging some of those traditions that bring us back to, hey, we're one, we're connected. But I think that that is some of the most relevant issues that we're facing, is because we have lost that. We are now all like black and white, the middle disappear. I want to know, how have you been able to connect those dots, because they're I'm sure they're available if you look, now, thank God you have internet, you can look it up. Um, but how we go about honoring those traditions, seeing the value. So that's part of my message. I want people to get that. This way we're living is a way. There is 100 million ways. And let's try to get a little bit of the stuff that is getting us in a bad spot. So, how has been your experience through that? That you've been bridging some of those traditions with, in this world.
So definitely those 3 years in isolation definitely helped. But honestly, if you have to start just deleting your social media for a week, huge change you will see in your life, because you will start to really see who's you, who's not, coming from something outside. At the end of the day, ascension, spiritual growth, personal growth is all about remembering. Remembering there is nothing new to learn.
Mm.
Everything inside of us, all the information we already experienced, we already lived so many lifetimes. We know this. We just
Mhm.
need to remember. And so that silence definitely help. That disconnection definitely help. Um, um, and so also understanding this, that when you awaken, it's called awakening because you awaken the ancestor, right? The old person inside of you right now. And so that old person is in your body right now. You don't need to get older to understand those lessons. You don't need to, die and reborn another time. You just remember who you are. Because you see, when you speak with older people, like 90 years old, and you feel their presence, their lived presence, their wisdom, and you could listen to them for hours because they have so much to tell us. And that is already inside of us, though, already,
Mm.
because it comes from, it's an intelligence that we just forgot about. And of course, as I say, the society as it's set up right now is all about distraction, is all about buy this, go do that. And I think when we really sit with ourselves and we see what we can remember about what we lived before, that's really it. That's really enough. You don't need much books. You don't need much other things. It's all about, are you willing to create the space?
Wow. So I want to bring it down to every normal people out there
Yeah,
because I think that many of us are not willing to go to 3 years of that
of
process.
course.
But what I want to bring into is like number one, absolute power to it. Do it as much as you can. Now, I have found a practice that I think is extremely accessible to anyone here. That is that if you just do whether it's a 24-hour, 48-hour, 36-hour fasting protocol multiple
Yes.
times a year, it's going to help you connect, remember, become aware, detox. Some people call it dopamine detox. So like there's different ways of doing it. And what I choose to do that I think is very accessible, I choose to do 48 hours, it could be more or less. I choose to in the spring and the fall go out into nature because those are the times that the transition is happening in front of our eyes and we can feel it. So I try not to get too scientific about it. I just know that, hey, springtime, I'm going to be hunting for that moment that it clicks. Like this is a transition. Like this is where it's tilting the other way. Like it's just kind of goes like this, and then the weather change, and then it's like it's tilting. I want to be present in that moment, and the same in the fall. It's like I want to arrive in the summer, like late summer, and I want to leave in the winter. Like where I live, it happens within a storm. So usually I'm just out there on a storm on a tent, and no phones, just water and a journal. And the stuff that is gonna come out of your head, a lot of times is gonna surprise you, and it's gonna change your life. And you can do the same thing in the winter. I do it a specific way. In the winter, my goal is to connect with God. In the summer and spring, is to connect with the environment, with nature, with the cycles that we're experiencing to fully transition from the yin to the yang and the yang to the yin. And then in the summer, I do kind of like sensory deprivation. What I find very helpful is because in the summertime, there's just so much going on, lots of activities, lots of people, animals are everywhere, sounds are everywhere. There's just so much going on. The light is the most intense. So I've been notching it in a little bit. Like you can start in any way you want, the most accessible to the least accessible. Like going to a cave, right? And limit your hearing, your smell, your obviously your food. There's no wind, there is no sound, there is no light. That would be like an extreme of how I would like to do it in the summer. I haven't done that yet, but I do enclose myself into an enclosed space. And it's to limit that sensory overload that we tend to experience in the summer. So the point being is like you can find your own way to do
Yeah.
this. And how I recommend it is to do it seasonally.
Yeah.
That way you don't go through long periods of time without having to think, having to be alone with your thoughts and realizing, wow, that little voice in my head never stops. And then you realize, well, that's not me. That's just my head, right? Becoming aware. So I completely agree, and I encourage everyone to follow that. Now, I want to follow up because this actually goes back to something that I wanted to touch up, and is that if we are not always aware, sometimes it's our ego, and I would say not sometimes, but like, 96% of the time is kind of the number that I use. I know there's different theories, and if you have something that you want to add to that, please feel free to correct me on that. But I believe our subconscious is, I call it the iceberg model. It's like, what you see above the water is just like 4% of what it really is. And, subconsciously we're driven by that 96%. So, numbers vary. There's different studies about it. So, but I do believe it's even more than that. But the point being is that scientifically proved there is one out there that is 96%. There is some of them that say it's 40, 60. So, what I want to get to this, and I'm kind of deviating a little too much, is that if we are not always our awareness or even when we go back and forward, um, how can we actually be okay with that? Now, follow me on this. Like, what is the issue when one is either too dominant or is too abrupt? Like, too much of one, or like one takes over and goes. What is the issue of not having that harmony between the two of them? Because I believe it all comes down to harmony. And I'm not going to go too deep into it. I want to know what is the issue when we experience something way too intense that we are not really meant to experience. It's like we are putting ourselves into those bad situations.
As you say, honestly, it gets to a point where there are certain things that you might notice when you start to be aware that you're like, I don't you either accept things, but when you don't want to accept it because you're like, I really want to change this, then you take the actions, right? And in the short term, again, there are ways to raise your vibration to ascend these, and you listen to music, you change the way you think about things, you catch yourself when you think certain thoughts, breathwork, meditation, dancing, singing, praying, all these things. They are little quote unquote acts that can become practice, and they can bring you to heal and ascend those things. The other way is the actual healing. So you get to a specialist and you're like, help me um, point to those blind spots. What's the solution there? What's the root there? And then when it gets serious, for example, there's been a very serious abuse, and then it's manifesting in your life as attracting abusers or things that actually are dangerous for your life, and then you need support. That's why there are so many amazing specialists, and you can find talk therapy, you can find shamanic healing, you can find coaching, anything that works. And that is, I think, also very supportive and very useful for the long term, because it's like going to the gym, right? When you begin and you want lose a couple of pounds for summer, then you go and you go really hard, but it's not sustainable. And so you need to actually go at the root. So change your nutrition, change your habits, and so you don't have to go so hard all the time that you want to fix something. It's the same thing for that. Those hacks works, and you want them to become an habit, so you get in a better way of living, and then those things slowly they solve for you. I also believe strongly that if you really want to change and you put the intentions and you have specific things, gonna show up for you to be able to solve that problem. You're gonna find the
Mm,
doctor, you're gonna find the coach, you're gonna find the teacher. It's gonna show up for you. And then
mm.
you need to recognize it and then do the thing that is scary, which is accepting the help, or go and do the thing that you've never done. And then that is going to, have you overcome. But definitely you need to be willing to change if you want.
Well,
Yeah.
I uh, I have a direction I want to go with
Right.
this, and before that, I want to have a selfless plug here because it truly is what I'm creating for whoever is seeking these. So I'm just gonna say it out there. There's no
Yes.
shame into it. Is that when you're first talking about those mechanisms that will allow us to become present,
Yeah.
for example, the meditation, the praying, the walking, going for a walk, the
Yeah.
getting the light in your face, like there's all these things that the issue that I see most people is that people tend to obsess with one of them and then they do it like 2 weeks in a row and then they stop.
Yeah.
And the solution that I have come up with it is seasonal routine. So when it comes down to the basics, like you mentioned, you didn't mention sleep, but you mentioned eating and exercising and outdoor connection. We already talk a lot about human relationships and the importance and the novelty, like seeking your intuition, having something fun to do. Again, when when we look at those the same way that when we look at the perhaps quote unquote hacks, I call them biohacks because it truly
Yeah,
rewires your brain. If you're
yeah,
breathing, it truly rewires your biology. If you
yeah.
have light in your eyes, the cold shower, like all these are biohacks. So the combination of habits, the basics, and the biohacks, what I have found more interesting through kind of what I'm doing, what I'm solving is that perhaps people get to that point. Like they get, they suffer so long or they suffer for a month, a week. Some people, I'm not going to get too extreme here, but in a cycle, in a normal cycle, people that usually thrive and then they get into this funk, they get into this negative side of things. And I think what I find so interesting is that more often what happens is that the environment change and their routines, the ego trying to do the same thing that worked 6 months ago, try to do that, but that is actually not in alignment anymore. It's like they're trying to live on a straight line when we know there is a little bit of a curve to it. So I'm trying to help people recognize how to adjust in a natural way that is, actually makes sense. Like there are scientific reasons why, and this is a little step by step thing that you can do so that your basics, your sleep, your eating is all in alignment with the season that you're facing. Because what we experience is that in the summer where I live is like 9 p.m. at night and it's still bright. And in the winter it's 4:30 and it's pitch black, like there is no light out there. That has a biological consequence. So trying to align with your circadian rhythms. And then when it gets really interesting is when you align your ultradian rhythms, which are your short time rhythms. There are natural rhythms within you that go up and down. It's 120, 90 minutes, every 90, every 120 minutes. It happens while you're asleep. So that's when those biohacks kind of come into play. So I like to call them breaks. And what do you do in those breaks? You don't scroll. You do the little biohacks that perhaps you got obsessed with a year ago. You did it for 2 weeks. You know it's valuable. You know it's good for you, but you didn't know how to plug it into a routine and when to enter and when to exit. Because that's the thing. It's like nothing remains the same. It's a cycle, it's always changing. So knowing when to transition, letting go, I think people have a hard time with that. It's like, this works, I feel great, but, and then they forget that that's supposed to carry them through a season, not through the whole life or the whole year. Like there's not awareness of letting go. Like letting go is one of the best things we can do. Like let go, shred. So that being said, that is from a Newtonian perspective. So that's what I find that is so interesting is that, and what I want to get to is the other side of things with you, is not the Newtonian world we live into. So a Newtonian, the physics, the laws of Newton are that there is gravity, there is like time that happens for you to move, for something to change needs time. That's the world we live in our bodies. But then there's like this other thing out there that has been highly talked about, and is, I don't know, like I don't think it's a hype. I just think that there's just still so much to discover that becomes like a scary place to even quote unless you really know what you're talking about. But I'm not a scientist, but I do know of it. And I know that you also know about it at a deeper level. So that's why I want to go there. I want to go into the quantum side of things. So if anybody hearing can basically put aside the law of Newton, like the Newtonian world that we live in, and open our minds to experience something different, I would like you, Minerva, to please take us there. Can you start from the basics and then expand on it? And I promise, guys, we're going to stay there, and I will let you know when we actually move to the other side, because I think that there is so much there that we can learn, and I don't want to let go of this very good opportunity.
Yes. So in quantum physics, we recognize and we consider everything as energy, as you say before, as one with the universe. So we are all particles, right, of oneness, of this one big ball of energy. And so that also bring us back to the infinite potential, infinite possibility, infinite ways of choosing the way that our life can go. as humans, we have freedom, right? So we can choose things, but sometimes it doesn't feel like it. And we say why? Because there are all these patterns and these things. And there's also why, it's, as you say, one of the best things you can do when these cycles happen is to surrender, right? Exactly as you say, be like water. Even Bruce Lee, everything that was said, like, be like water. If you look at martial arts, what it's about is all about surrender. When the other person attack you, you surrender and you use the energy to
Hmm.
counterattack, right? It's very different than boxing, where you actively go and you box, right? You attack. And so it's all about this principle. The Eastern is more related to that, is more flowing with that. When we create society in the Western, of course, we try to create consistency. We try to create cycle that we think that things have to always be the same, right? We create a 9 to 5 where you always get the same salary. However, that goes against how the nature is. And so when you go back to quantum physics, you really realize, okay, we're all part of one. It means that the first thing is that we need to dance with everything.
Hmm.
We need to go where the energy goes. Again,
Hmm.
like martial arts, to remove resistance.
Hmm.
And okay, now it's time to work. I have this spike. I will work maybe 12 hours a day because I feel the spark. And then
Hmm.
maybe I will rest for a week. You know,
Hmm.
that might happen. It might be a cycle because, and sometimes, when you force it and you try to work even when it's not coming, the idea is not coming, or the situation, the opportunity, people won't reply to your question, to your emails, you won't get any jobs, and you keep forcing, and nothing happens. And that's again surrendering. And then you have time where you're like, oh my gosh, I wake up and I have 5 million things to do. But the thing is that if you rested that week, there was nothing happening. Now you will have all the energy to go all
Hmm.
in at this time. And so it's always beneficial for us to follow these cycles. And again, it's the same thing that in quantum physics that say, right? It's like, there are all the possibility out there already right now available to you where you want to vibrate. Do you want to continue to do the thing that is safe and that you've always been doing? Or you want to open up and see, okay, I've been doing that, right? I can always go back to that. What else is possible? And then you enter into the quantum. Then you enter into the miracles, right? I call my program Manifesting Miracles because miracles supposed to be in your life every day. Miracles is all about choosing different, so different things can come in your life. And it becomes very normal once you
Hmm.
open up to this. It's all about that. Are you okay to seeing that? Because if you are like this, then it means that you go to your coffee shop, but now you are open to have conversation with people. Maybe before you weren't, because you were already thinking about, okay, I gotta go to the office, I gotta do this. And you know how many times we do things, we go in the line, we get the coffee, we leave. And maybe your investor was sitting there
Hmm.
in that moment, and we miss it. And so, really, working with the universe means that working in the quantum means that first you accept the help of the universe, you know that you do your part and that you are supported, you leap and you are supported, right?
Hmm.
It's a co creation, it's not only you. Society is all about in your own person, being you the self-made. But
Hmm.
what that means, self-made, somebody has to give you the money, somebody has to pay you, somebody has to give you the work. So this thing is not really a thing. If you think you cannot do everything alone, because that means you're gonna pay yourself. Like what that means,
Yeah, you depend on people to buy your products or to make them, or
right? You need the collective. There is no
Mhm.
way that you do things alone. But
Mhm.
also there is this thing that starts in school where you want to be the first. That means that everybody has to be after you. So this thing about being one, the first, there is only one first place, right? It
Mhm.
means everybody else is going to lose. So all these things are so installed in our subconscious.
Mhm.
Well, before, if you were in the village, and even right now, when you go to indigenous people, everybody in the village do something. The shaman is going to be the shaman. The shaman is not cooking. The shaman is not doing all the things that we do in our life. The shaman just give you the wisdom. Everybody support the shaman. The shaman doesn't supposed to work. At the same time, there is the person that go to work. It doesn't supposed to maybe go and do everything at home because somebody else is doing that. So we all stay in our genius. We all do more of what we are more capable of doing instead of everybody doing everything. Like it's more the mentality, right? You need to do everything yourself.
Mhm.
Um, and so, yes, there is this shift, this opening to really see who am I as individual, what am I good at, and then double up on that And that doesn't mean that you don't need to learn how to do other things, right? But make sure that you are in alignment, that you are doing the things that you want to do, that you like to do. That's the GPS. That's telling you already who you are. That's your essence.
Mm.
And so that creates more an easy life, right? A life with ease.
I want to stay in the quantum world
Yeah,
and prevent getting too detailed
yeah,
about the mechanics and because then the mind wants to pull you into how that works, right? Like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah,
let's
yeah.
just like go for a moment. And I mean, my hairs just kind of flare up a little bit when you're saying that. Just because I'm trying to show people a way to get there, to live from that perspective. That it's not that it's unique. Everything in this world has been created, but I feel like somehow we have forgotten about it. Like you say, like this world brings encouragement when we are doing. When I do everything myself, I'm self-reliable, or I bend over the world to my will.
Yeah.
And if I want this, this is how it's gonna go. Instead of being passive. I mean, even me saying that right now, me saying being passive, I have remorse of saying that because it has such a negative connotation. But being passive is no different than surrendering, than going with the flow. Again, even saying it can be a little bit of a, like there is something in me that even though I've been doing this work for a long time, and I see you use the word when you start talking, you say brave. And that's when I activated. Okay, you need to be brave to let go of control. There is nothing honorable or remaining on control. That's the ego. Letting go, accepting, surrendering, acknowledging, flowing with it, that takes the biggest bravery. You have to be courageous. You have to let go of outcomes. You have to let go of what will people think. The list just goes on and on and on and on. I think that's where courage is met. And the way that I am manifesting that through my perception, through my work, is that the seasons show you that way. The seasons are the river that you flow with. You don't swim against it because there is such a yeah, great job. Like you're just struggling. You are just like going against the current because you somehow happen to want to go the other direction, or you wanted to go faster, or that makes no sense, but that's the society that we live into. When the seasons are here to show you a path, like it literally that's what it is. That's what at the beginning when we're talking the word harmony came to mind. I think that when we achieve harmony from any perspective, whether it is between our ego and who we are, whether it is between our rhythm, the example that you gave about working 2 weeks straight and then resting a week, whatever that flow you're into, I acknowledge that the seasons are not the only flow. There is people that specialize in astronomy and they really understand what's happening, and that's not me. The one that I specialize on is the cycle of the year, and I find it enriching that there are many ways to find rhythm, to find harmony. And I think that it believes with being brave. Because even if you are an expert and you actually have all the knowledge in the world, it all comes down to letting go at one point. Letting go of many instances. Like I have 3 kids. Sometimes when I'm putting those 12-hour shifts, sometimes it's like, and it's like, no, this is the season for this. There's gonna be a season where I'm gonna be, and I'm a very present father, so I also use that to justify the very few instances that I do that, but letting go and being brave. So now let's talk about time, because in the Newtonian world, time is, pretty linear, like time just follows its path. But on the quantum physics, like it's just kind of it's a different animal when it comes down the relation between time and space. Um, you already mentioned how the atomic particles are, so hollow, and perhaps you can go there a little bit. How Because I think we're getting into the theme of my initial question, which is where is the separation? Because what is a solid thing in the quantum physics worlds is very different than
Yeah,
in kind of what we believe. Because
yeah,
like actually that is scientifically proven. Like,
yeah,
but there is like this belief. that is something, but in actuality has been proven to be something else. This is not woo-woo stuff, like this is science.
Exactly. And as you say, like every particle that we are made of are 99.999% made of air. So means made of nothing. That means that in the quantum field, we are infinite possibility. We are part of nothing. We are actually air made of nothing, right? Then when you come down with gravity, it becomes the physical, right? That's the level we're in. But the more we go up and we see exactly what we are made of, scientifically, as you say, we are made of 9999994% nothing. And so then they also give the freedom to be everything, right? Everything and nothing is the same thing, depending what side of the coin you're watching. And so when you speak about time, as you say, there is the linear time, there is the one that we really need to meet for podcasts, right? To meet for appointments and things. And so it's very useful for society. However, time as we perceive it is very different than linear time because you can really notice this when you do something that is called flow, which is an experience that we all had, where you're doing something that you like so much. If you think about kids when they play, kids can play for hours. They don't feel hungry. They don't feel thirsty. They don't feel tired. They don't feel nothing. They would just play until it's time for them to stop playing, right? And it's the same thing for us when we are creating something for who's a writer, when he's writing, when it's a dancer, when they're dancing, where time is really that experience where it seems so short, but also you are so present with the thing that you are doing that you become the thing. And I'm sure we all had that experience. You're writing and you become the page. You are dancing and you become the dance. If it's somebody, for example, I like washing dishes. So when you wash dishes, I'm in the thing. Like I like the water. I feel like the movement. Like I'm really in the action. And so there is no more boundaries between you and what you're doing.
Wow, that is like chapter one of my book is about entrainment. So the word we use now is a flow, and I mean I love that word. It's like but entrainment. So and it's interesting. I think that you so in nature we see entrainment, but I think that what we leave when we are separate from it is disruptance, right? So entrainment is when you see something in rhythm. So an example will be the waves in the ocean. You know, where does the wave start? Where does the wave finishes? They go forever, but they are entrained. Another one will be, you know, if I somehow I'm tired and I forgot the word actually when you're tired and you make these I forgot the word because English is my second language. You're gonna have to forgive me. But when you snooze, it's not snoozing by the way, but like you know when you are tired and then somebody else sees you doing that, then the other person does it too. You know
Oh,
when
yawning.
yawning, yeah. And
Yeah.
when you yawn, somebody else is yawning too. That's called entrainment. So everywhere through nature, entrainment is the natural design, the order that God has created. When there is no entrainment, there is disruptance. And what is so interesting is that we actually create that for ourselves.
Yeah.
That time that we have the 24-hour clock, and okay, I have to go to sleep at this time. I had to wake up at this time. I had to exercise at this time. And it's like when there is no reason why, other than you know, it's just how I fit my schedule. Like when you don't think behind that and think, okay, what is the natural rhythm of my body? What is the natural rhythm of society? What is the natural rhythm of the light? Like when you don't look around to create that routine, you're actually disturbing your natural entrainment with the world. So what I find fascinating is how can we use time and matter and actually compress that to create change and get back into entrainment. Entrainment, what is entrainment? Again, being in alignment, perhaps with who you really are, doing the thing that you're supposed to be
Yeah.
doing during this time, which is not the same what you do another time. Like, how can you compress time? Let's go there. So I know that that's a lot of what you can, you know, what you do is compressing time to see results, you know.
This is also a beautiful way to end it, just because I have the last 5 minutes, so I can just get this one last question. So, when what you're speaking is what is called also quantum leap, right? When people talk about quantum leaps, so really upgrading yourself in a very short amount of time, kind of the thing that you hear people having success overnight or those kind of things, right? People happening overnight, and that's all coming from a compound effect of you doing actions in alignment with your zone of genius for a longer period of time. And so that means that we come back to that, finding your zone of genius, what you're naturally inclined to do, what you're naturally good at, what you actually naturally like to do, and then leaning into that. And that's when you create flow. Because you have those talent, you have those calling inside of you, because you are meant to express that the most in this lifetime. You are meant to spend a lot of that time to do that for yourself and also for the collective. And so that creates a ripple effect where the more you are in your zone of genius, doing those things that are aligned for you, the more you can create a result in very smaller amount of time. You can collapse time. That's when they say people that have talent, they can skip the line almost, right? When you're good at something, you don't need to do all the training that people need to do. You don't need maybe to study all the things. You naturally know how to do it. People talented at sport, people talented at learning about quantum physics, about this thing. And for some people, getting a book open and be like, this is impossible for me. It's the same thing. Like you want to focus and go in the direction that you were born with, and the interest that you like, what you love to do. That's the GPS. What make you happy? Because the more you're happy, the more you have those emotion of joy, the more you expand, the more you elevate your spirit, the more you elevate your vibration, the more you help people around you. So really, again, talking about the season, talking about following the cycle, following the nature of who we are. Don't force it. That's, I think, is when you get into quantum leaps, is when you get to collapse time and being your talent, being your excellence.
Thank you so much, Minerva. I want to say, guys, if you're watching this, check the description down below. That's what we do. Like that is our purpose. I don't know if you guys have been able to get that vibration throughout the camera, throughout the audio, but I like to say that even though I know how to collapse time, like I actually take a Newtonian world perspective into how to create that flow, scientifically proven and in alignment with the physics, the quantum physics as well. That is what I try to do is how can I honor both? And I feel extremely proud that I have this unique perspective about how to do it, and it's scientifically proven, and I'm just so excited about it. So that is my call to action. Check out the description down below. You can get a hold of Minerva. You pretty much already got an idea what she can do for you. She can compress time and guide you through awareness. And then the same thing for me. I have my link down below. I take a little more of a Newtonian world approach, but I also honor quantum physics and the spiritual realm that we live into as well. So thank you so much for watching. If you watched this far, you definitely got your value words for. Thank you so much, Minerva. I will leave it up to this. I think that we have a great time together, and I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being here. And everybody watching, keep it seasonal.
Thank you. Thank